Welcome to the Sanity Project podcast, where you can awaken your mind to clarity and success even in today's life challenges. We're here to provide insights and solutions that will help you live a sane, healthy, and prosperous life. Here's your host, Joanne Victoria.
Hi, this is Joanne Victoria with another amazing episode of the Sanity Project podcast. You are here to discover a life of clarity, confidence, sanity, and entrepreneurial success. Our guest today is Bryan Rutberg. Bryan owns a company called 3ccomms.com, which is 3C, COMMS.com. He can be reached at Bryan at 3ccomms.com, and we're here to talk about communication. Welcome, Bryan Rutberg.
I am so glad to be here, Joanne. Thanks for having me.
I'm grateful that you are here because communications is important right now. It's always important to me because it's one of my 4 C's besides clarity, confidence, communication, and something else that I can't recall. But I know it's there. 4 C's, that's it. And you are here to talk about communication in relationships, communication at work, communication between owner and employee, and things like that. Yes?
Exactly. Yeah, I'm with you that communications is one of those evergreen skills that we want to continue building. Everything starts when 2 people find themselves on the same page, and things come to a screeching halt when they aren't. And the way to make sure that people are on the same page is for each of us to get better at clearly saying what it is we want in a business relationship. And of course, that just migrates into when you're doing volunteer work, when you're leading your personal life, when you're looking to keep things good with a spouse or loved one. You want to be clear, and you want to stand up for yourself, and you want to guide them down the path that makes everybody happy.
Yes, and you want to be heard. That's important, I think. Yeah, it's something that I think is in conflict out there in the world right now. People want to be heard so badly that they are using language that they would not normally use, as well as the method of expressing this language. Do you run across that? Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah.
Well, and if I may, there's a difference in my mind, and it's a little bit of semantic splitting hairs, but that's what us word nerds do. The difference between being heard, knowing that the sound waves got across, and being understood and having the other person be able to take the appropriate action from what they've heard and understood. Therein lies the difference. And it's certainly not the case that just shouting it louder helps it get through. It's not the case that using foul language or provocative language or accusatory language helps you make your point and then gets you what you need. It's finding alignment and using language that is focused on your audience and what they need at that moment. So it's not about you, it's about them. And leading with the benefit, especially in a business environment, leading with the benefit of, if you're hearing what I'm saying, if you understand what I'm saying and you go do this, we're going to find ourselves in a better place that you want to be in.
That says it succinctly, that's for sure. It's just that I have to agree with my own statement that people want to be heard. You hear that, but you also say people want to be understood, and sometimes you just want to take a bottle and crack it over somebody's head, probably your own first. But it seems as though it leads to no safety. There's something about no safety that comes in there. You don't feel safe having this conversation with somebody who doesn't hear you. And I think that's a huge problem. Do you find that so in your work?
I do. Picking up on your thought of, over whose head will you break the bottle, and acknowledging that often it's your own. We can take there are some people who simply don't want to hear, or their minds are closed off by choice. They've made a decision, whether they know it or not, that they're not going to be listening. I think of our political circumstances very often bring that about. People don't want to be in the conversation that is going to force them to rethink their closely held positions. But in a familial situation or in a business situation, I think it's right to assume that we're reaching for the same goals. And if there's miscommunication, if the action taken doesn't match the intent of the speaker, or there's no action taken when you clearly wanted action to be taken, I always want the clients I work with to put the blame on themselves first, to ask, how could I have communicated that better, instead of saying, well, they just didn't understand me. If they didn't understand you, physician, heal thyself.
Right. Yeah, I get that. And it's real clear. We have to take responsibility, because there are some schools of thought where they say, what was it? Can I get that correct? Probably not, but you'll understand what I'm saying. Is the person that needs to hear. What am I trying to say, Joanne? The one who needs to hear it. It's the responsibility of the listener as opposed to the speaker. I don't agree with that, because you just said the same thing that I'm agreeing with. Is it's up to me to get you to understand my perspective, sort of that kind of thing.
I'm in full agreement, and think about what a powerful, when it comes to being clear and confident in your communications, there's 3 C's for us, the power of the humility that comes across when I say to you, I don't think we're quite on the same page. I think I'm not being clear enough. Let me try that again. And how that leaves you as a listener open-minded to what I'm going to say next. I'm not accusing you of being dense or stupid or willfully ignorant. I'm saying I need to do a better job of communicating that, because I don't think we've gotten where we need to be for us to feel comfortable moving on, for me to feel like you've got your part in this project nailed down, or you got the point of the meeting, or you're going to commit to doing the thing that I'm asking you to do. Whether you're a fellow employee or a partner in my business or one of my customers.
I think that's true, especially when someone is attached to their bias, or they have their ego doesn't allow them to hear the person who's sharing, i.e. you, the problem, the situation. And, you accept responsibility and you will gladly explain it again. And then we have somebody on the other side going, but yeah. No, it doesn't work like that. And yet a lot of people are so attached to being right. I hate that word sometimes. It doesn't connote what I'm trying to say. It's just that it's a highly rude word in most people's presentation. But that unconscious bias or a conscious bias has a lot of strength in that.
Indeed. Good communicators are folks who spend a certain amount of time in their own head thinking about the biases that they bring, and thinking about all the ways in which what they're trying to get across could be misinterpreted. Doesn't mean that every speaker needs to over-explain. And in fact, that's a common problem for folks who are doing presentations in public speaking. They say the same thing 27 different ways, hoping one way is going to land. It's the old throw spaghetti against the wall to see what sticks. The trick is to use some preparation time before an important communication, to say it 27 times and then figure out which one or two munged together really get the point across, so you don't have to say the other 25 or 6.
Yeah, and I think that speakers should be, and saying that, tired of explaining themselves. I think that when you get up to speak about X and you speak about X from your perspective, your point of view, your thoughts, whatever, your biases, you don't have to explain yourself. And that's what I find problematic now, is that people want to be told in their own fashion what you're talking about. Do you understand what I'm saying?
If I do understand it, I may ask you to clarify, because if I do understand it, I'm not sure I agree. I think it's incumbent upon speakers to find a way to connect with their audience and to put things in words that are audience focused and lead with the benefit to the audience of taking the action or the inaction that the speaker is promoting. Did I hear you right?
Pretty much. We could probably spend a little more time. I saw a speaker. She had recorded this video in England, London, a couple of years ago, and she had to come up with, she was in a position where she needed to come up with explanations, and the explanations were her stories about X, whatever it might be. And that got this situation across easier to the listeners. Although, people walk into a room with, expectations, and that could create a problem for the speaker, as far as, he or she thinks they're communicating X, and then they or them are hearing Y. So there's still something there that I don't know how it can be translated.
And that's where the work lies.
Okay.
For anybody who is looking to address an audience, whether that's going to be written or verbal, and whatever particular modality that might take. I encourage my clients, I coach my clients to think about 4 things before they begin any communication, whether it's a simple writing of an email or whether it's preparing for an hour-long speech at a conference or trade show or something like that. You want to think about who's in the audience, and you've just hit on part of that. What is the audience's attitude as they come into the room? You ask questions too of, are they friendly, or are they, generally disinclined to know what I'm talking about? Do we share a common, say, professional language? Am I a lawyer talking to other lawyers, or a cancer researcher talking to other cancer researcher, or am I talking to an audience that I have to be a little more careful in my explanations because we don't have the same baseline of knowledge? But all the things you can look at in an audience, up to and including its gender mix and age and how long they've been sitting in their seats, you want to think about that. You also want to think about, what is it, if I find them in a particular mental state, what is the new mental state I want them to be in by the time they finish reading my email, reviewing my memo, or hearing my presentation at the meeting? And you want to begin as a communicator being conscious about where you're trying to take people. The next step is think about what you want them to go do as a result of having, you presume, heard and understood what you're getting at. If I'm going to be persuasive, what is it I need to ask them to do? Sometimes that's as simple as, stay tuned, we're going to have more information later, and now you're up to speed. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's very direct. Call now, operators are standing by, or vote for me, or let's go out and win this battle with the competition. And then last, you want them thinking about you, because you are building a long-term relationship with this audience. You can sometimes coerce people into doing things, and they're never going to feel good about it, and they're going to hold it against you, and they're going to hold it against your organization. If you make people feel like you're reaching for a relationship and you have their best interest at heart, and collective action is what's going to get you where you want to go, then you've continued to build a relationship or begun to build a relationship through your communication. So audience, goal, go do, and you. Think about those 4 things. It's something I think we do pretty much instinctually.
Right.
The best communicators take that instinctual process and make it explicit. You literally sit back, even if it's just for a minute before you start typing, or if it's for days or weeks, if you're planning out a full speech and presentation, think about those things, make it explicit, and know where you're going before you start.
Yes, those are good words. They're very direct and very clear, and I think any speaker would pay attention to them. But I did write down your 1 through 5 lines. You're encouraged, your 4 ways of thinking. I wrote those down too. I take about 3 pages of notes for every podcast, so it's kind of like weird when I look at it 2 or 3 weeks later and go, what did I write? What did they say? And then I have to go speak up about the words on the page so that I can get that back into that flow again.
Love it. Well, let's encourage all of our listeners to take careful notes. And of course, they can reach out to me if they're looking for any more clarity.
Well, along with reaching out to you for more clarity, I can also say I tell my listeners in pretty much every episode is once they have heard the speaker, the guest for today, i.e. you, Bryan Rutberg, 3ccomms.com, is to listen to this in a quiet room, not when they're driving the car or riding their bike or exercising or whatever, but listen to this, and because you're not going to remember everything. I'm taking notes and I don't remember what I just wrote down, but that's something, that's another arena. But it's really important that because you take the yellow pad and the pen, that's what you're doing, and you write things down because you won't remember everything. You will miss some good stuff because the only thing you're going to hear the first time around is what pertains to you. The second time around, you're going to hear what might pertain to your audience, whoever they may be, whatever kind of an audience it is. But it's really, really important. And the message stays into your body because you're putting it from pen to paper in your body, your entire body. So this is what you have to do. Otherwise, I'll come get you.
Love it.
So
that quiet room idea is a good one. My regular position for listening to podcasts is horizontal. I put something in my ears and I let it sort of lull me to sleep. It does take me 3 or 4 listens to get through an entire podcast to know that I've actually heard it. Love the idea of finding a quiet place, just go listen and be intent from start to finish.
Yeah, I do everything in a quiet place. I read my books, I listen to podcasts, I do all of that stuff in a room that nobody is allowed to enter while I'm in it.
Ooh.
Well, yeah, it's called a door.
I like that. I might have to have a few words with an 8-pound, 4-ounce dachshund who recently joined our lives. But outside of that,
well, maybe the dachshund won't cause you. They won't bother you that much. But it's, you just need the space. We don't take that time. And as far as the podcasts go, I don't know if I could listen to another one. Truthfully, yes, my listeners, you can listen to mine, but don't worry about anything else. It's just difficult because there's just so much out. During COVID, everybody started a podcast.
It's definitely a popular way of getting information across.
Yeah, it certainly is. Okay, so what else are we going to talk about? We have time let's talk about this self-assessment that you have as a free call to action for our listeners. Would you describe?
And I imagine, happy to. I imagine it'll be in the show notes.
Yes,
so
it will.
Please, listeners, go ahead and check it out. It is free. It's 20 quick questions on which you can rate yourself 1 to 5. So it is a self-assessment. So honesty will be key. When you take the self-assessment, you'll get a sense of how you land on 20 major, call them axes, of communications skills. Everything from how well you prepare to communicate, how well you actually present yourself when you communicate, whether it's written or verbal communication. And then I've got some questions in there about follow-up as well. Depending upon how you assess yourself, you'll get a result that gives you some suggestions as to what you might wish to invest some time in, from polishing up your skills where they need a little bit of attention, to using the skills where you are most gifted and most comfortable to be the front foot that you lead with when you communicate. It's a great way of just looking at the major parts of planning and delivering any communication and getting a sense of where you feel like you're strong and where you'd like to invest a little more time.
Now, would you say this assessment calls the person to retake it after 90 days or so just to see if there was any improvement?
I think that's a great idea. The opportunity to go back and take it again and again, because it is a self-assessment. You're not answering, you're not doing a quiz that then grades you. You're just scoring yourself on a 1 to 5 scale. If you're honest with yourself and you feel like you've made progress because you've intentionally worked on something, whether you do the assessment again online or whether you simply make that mental check in the box, I said I wanted to get better at varying my tone of voice when I'm presenting. I've invested some time and energy in that. I've learned a few things and now I'm doing it better. Give yourself the pat on the back and take the win. But yes, I will be interested because I get the results of everybody who takes the survey. I will be interested in seeing if you retake it and if you score yourself higher on something. I'll be especially pleased if you've used any of the videos that I've got on YouTube or LinkedIn or any of the essays on the blog on the website to help you get where you want to go.
And you mentioned YouTube, and YouTube, Twitter, and LinkedIn are your connections, and they will also be on the show notes. So fantastic. I want to thank you, Bryan, for being here today. This has been informative, very much so, and pointedly because you're an expert in your field. So I appreciate you being here, and I'm sure the listeners do as well.
Thank you, Joanne. Yeah, what a delight to get a chance to talk with you. I could talk about talking and talk about communication all day long. It's been a pleasure spending a few minutes with you.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Cheers. You as well.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Sanity Project podcast. Please go to AskJoanneVictoria.com to listen to more podcasts. Check out Joanne's coaching programs and get a free copy of her report, 5 Steps to Achieve Life-Work Harmony. That's AskJoanneVictoria.com. Take care, and thanks for being here.